a mini kind of discussion on what Webb's depth of knowledge is. So at this point, you're probably at my website right about here, and you're looking at Webb's depth of knowledge, and you're like, well, what is this? So Webb's depth of knowledge basically is a way of thinking about asking questions, and there are hierarchies in questions. Probably in tests before you've looked and gone, man, that question was easy. When was the War of 1812? 1812. And so that's kind of a low level on the depth of knowledge. So if you look at my mouse here, that's kind of a recall and reproduction. When did this happen? Who was the leader of the French during 1800? So you talk about Napoleon or something here, or during the French Revolution, who was the leader of such and such party. Now, we're going to avoid level 1 because those questions are actually pretty simplistic. So your assignment is to come up with 6 different questions from the different levels of Webb's depth of knowledge. So let's look at depth of knowledge level 2. And this is really applying that knowledge. So it asks questions like, how did something happen? How does something work? How is something used? So if I were to come up with a Webb's depth of knowledge question for the darkest hour, I might come up with how was makeup and how were prosthetics used effectively to create Churchill out of Gary Oldman? So I would probably look at a picture of Gary Oldman who played Churchill and then look at what was required there. I might say down here, how was humor used? I remember at one point he's talking to the French and he's trying to speak French with them and he's just doing a brutal job. So how was humor used in the video, and was that significant? So let's look at Webb's depth of knowledge level 3. How can knowledge be used? So these are questions like, why did something happen? How can you use it? Why can you use it? What is the cause? What is the effect? What is the reason? What is the result? So it might be, what is the result of using humor in The Finest Hour? What were the results of Gary Oldman's acting on you? How effective were Churchill's speeches? I might ask at one point, what is the reason that he yells the word house painter? Or I might look at, what is the reason for the introduction to Churchill where he gets out of bed in that sort of overcoat? Or why did he always have a cigar? What was the cinematographic effect? Or I might ask, how historically accurate is this film? And I would research that. Depth of knowledge level 4 is extending your thinking. So I might say, what is the impact of this film on all films about Churchill? What is the influence that Churchill still has to this day? What are the lessons that we can learn from this film to apply during this crisis that we're in right now? How are some politicians like Churchill, and what qualities do those look like? What are lessons that politicians today could learn from Churchill? So looking at those questions, it's actually kind of hard. It's probably going to take you about 20-30 minutes to come up with 6 questions that do at least hit one of those levels. So what I would recommend is doing 2 from each or 1 from each, and then challenging yourself to do sort of a level 3 or level 4 question. Eventually we're going to use these for our blogs. So come up with some great questions, and I can't wait to hear them and discuss this movie in a highly intellectual way with you. If you're more into graphics, you can look here and look at level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4 and sort of what they do. But really, basically, at the very basic level, what I'd encourage you to do, folks, is just think about what are some good questions I could ask that can promote some discussion of this film, and then we'll probably do either a Zoom meeting or some blogs, and I'll get that information out to you, and we'll provide lots of options. So I can't wait to read your questions. These are going to be exciting. I love this movie. In general, I would say that Churchill's